All right, we're testing this other place I'm in. I'm trying to make sure that the internet works to a sufficient degree. Now, originally, what was going to happen this week was I was going to stream on Monday, and then I was going to stream on Saturday for what was supposed to be my final stream of the year. I mean, what's still, I do intend to stream on Saturday. I don't know the entire extent because basically the difference between here and my normal place is that I don't really have a area where I can go where there's um, either little chance of interruption or it's somewhere that I have like a closed door setting, like no one usually goes in there except me. So it's a little bit more difficult, but we'll try to work around it. Um, it's been such a bizarre last couple of days where I just really kind of got out the mix because I planned on doing a, a new edited one where I was going to talk about relationships, right? And I was gonna do it differently than how I normally do it because about like rejections and some stupid woman wasting your time, so on end. But I was trying to discuss is that a lot of times these people that give this advice don't actually talk about what things are supposed to happen when you are having a productive set of interactions with someone. Even the holidays were bizarre. Oh, absolutely. I know a family where this one group of people bought a whole bunch of Thanksgiving food, and they had the goal to get all that food, not ask one of the people that lived there if they were hungry the entire day. Now, that's crazy. I already told you I live in the twilight zone, so I'm not too surprised when that type of stuff happens. None whatsoever. Can't be too shocked. I really forgot to retake the thumbnail. I guess I'll just take it after the stream is done. But yeah, a lot of people don't really discuss actual good things that are supposed to come out of being with someone. Like I know you're sick of it, Akatsuki merch. I know I'm sick of it, but just the actual act of being with a person who enjoys your company, who you are eagerly anticipating doing things with. Like I guess what these people never are able to answer for me is how there's this disconnect where I think you've heard this before, Akatsuki merchant, where some man wants to talk to some woman, but he's nervous or he otherwise feels if he has to try and impress her. And then you have some men that are with a woman who they get to act like themselves around completely. And I I guess what I can't understand is what is appealing about trying to impress somebody with some version of yourself that isn't even what you actually want to be. Because remember, all these people tell you to do exercise and all this other crap. Just for that person that you're doing all this stuff to attempt to impress, to just go and speak to you month after month and waste your time and go and date some other man. It's like, what was this? And that's why I said that, like, the chick stuff wouldn't even be so obnoxious if it weren't for just so much time wasting and so many false starts. And like, I'm not joking when I say this. They do things that, like, I always try to say I can have empathy for people that have different experiences from myself. Um, but there's some stuff where it just like I I would be rattling my mind to even think of how it makes sense. I actually give you an example. Um, and I was so I couldn't believe it. So there was a woman I met on Twitter, and we start talking about some show. Right? She likes it, I like it. I asked her, when she's gonna go to bed. It's kind of late. She goes to because we live in the same state. She goes to bed at some point. I asked her if she slept well. She says yes. And then I say, "Oh, good, you're tan, rested, and ready. Like you've been recharged, right, from sleep." And she asked, "What does that mean?" And I said, "It's just a little saying I have, and it means whenever you're ready to do whatever you have planned for the day." Now, this interaction, the last message I get from her has her saying, "Ha ha ha ha," right, as in she's amused by this, right? So imagine my surprise when after her last message is her laughing, the next action she takes is blocking me. I swear when I saw that you can no longer send messages to this person thing on my screen, I thought it was some kind of glitch on that website. I couldn't I was shocked. And I said, this kind of takes me back to another interaction I told you about where there was some woman where I was like playing this is some months back. This is like 4 or 5, 6 months ago. But it was earlier this year. There was a woman I was playing some video games with, and you know, just like all the other liars, she was giggling and laughing at all the stuff I was saying, me and like two other people. Um, and I remember distinctively, I had made like a joke about, Will you accept my friend request? I wonder." And she did. And then she said she would, message me again after she had, gotten back from, I think it was sleeping or working or something. And later on that day, after I wake up from my own slumber, because I stayed up all night playing this stuff with her, uh, I find out that she blocked me, which means you spent 5, 6 hours with getting to know this person who was just going to make it to where you couldn't speak to them abruptly and randomly right after that initial. That's why I said like it's weird, and I swear to you, I have never spoken to a man on the computer. Even and we know that there are weird men online. Nobody is here saying that, but I've never spoken to a guy on the internet where um you don't get in any arguments with him and he just blocks you. He just like washes his hands with you. You know what I mean? Like it's only these weird women on the internet that do that. Now, of course, there are weird women in real life too that'll ghost you. In fact, we talked about one of them a few weeks ago, but it just seems so strange to me that like this is a recurring thing I'm noticing with chicks that I swear I didn't see this 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Like it's that and the whole the group of them that doesn't want to do phone calls. I think we mentioned that before where they never want you to hear their voice. Like those are two new things I didn't see up until the last couple of years. It's so bizarre. And I did the video "We Can't Go Back" for that specific reason. I said, why invest so much effort into talking to a group of people who clearly do not appreciate your effort? Because like what gets me is that in both of these interactions, and I'll put up all the messages with me and the other one on the screen if I have to. But in both of these interactions, and even with the one we're talking about with this lady at this office, none of this stuff is romantic. The stuff I wrote to them is or said to them is not of some explicit or erotic nature. So the idea that you would get effectively the same result from chicks you're trying to be platonic with that you would get from ones that you were attempting to be romantic with, I think speaks volumes of the ego, right? Because we talked about how they all think that there was some woman who said 99% of the time, if a man is trying to talk to a woman online, it's not a project he's trying to, or it's either he's trying to get her to work with him on something or he's trying to start a relationship. Some stupid thing, right? Some statistics she just made up in her mind. And we've also mentioned that a lot of times when they try to argue against my points, they just create stuff. They don't show any proof, right? Because remember we saw the screenshots. They make up statistics or they make up claims of this many people like this many people like that. That's why one of the reasons why I never released the audio of me, like in that debate with that woman who was who had like a problem with me saying I'm good, I'm done with them, I'm not interested in them. Um, One of the things that stuck out in that discussion was her claiming that most people have standards and or have these types of standards, and it's like again, no evidence of this. Just take my word for it. So There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of making stuff up. I mean, fiction about men they've never met. They make up, so they can like justify why this happened to you. Statistics, right, of stuff they can't prove. They try to shower you in these insta fix solutions. Look at the guy that said if you go to this random other country, you can get women like it's nothing. That type of nonsense. Um, so it's a sad state of affairs with a lot of these people. Now, the holidays were very bizarre, and you always hear people talking about New Year's resolutions and all this other garbage. I said, my thing is, if you want to do something or you have some kind of goal that you're trying to achieve, why do you have to wait until the first? That's why I just don't deal with it. Where's the point? Well, that's why I was saying that, like, it used to be, yeah, what's the point? I figured that's what you're trying to say, but what I was getting at here is it used to be that you would meet someone that you were physically attracted to, that you actually enjoyed spending time with, that you would want to do things with, that you actually enjoyed being in the company of. But when you're sitting there and year after year having to talk to all these different women on the computer and sometimes in real life, and then some of them speak to you for a couple of weeks before saying, I think we should whatever, or a few months, and like sometimes it's not even like an actual reason given. You get tired of hitting the reset button because you're like, what is enjoyable about speaking to all these bastards where the stuff is going nowhere? And then on top of that, after you get through talking to them, and you mention any of this stuff online to somebody else, guess who's getting blamed? Like, that's why I said the woman stuff is so frustrating because they have taken everything that could be considered appealing to men and totally removed it from the equation. I mean, we talked about this before. There was, I specifically even like got to a point where I was only bothering with these bastards because I had like this dream of like wanting to get married and have a family. A lot of these chicks, you ask them point blank, do you want to at some point get married, etc. And they and agree. Um, but if they're going to deny you what you want, whether it's in the long term, like getting married, having children, or the short term, like going on a damn date, what is the purpose of this? Like, if you can't get what you actually want out of speaking to someone, what is the purpose of talking to them? Because, like I said, I've never met a single woman who I was like, oh my god, she is so funny. She is like telling me all these profound things I've never even considered. So I clearly don't speak to them because they're these great conversationalists. And I already told you before, man, we really have like systematically cracked the myth of chicks, because what happens is that a lot of guys on the internet that are like nominally on their side, who, the ones that, I'm talking about, the ones that go around telling you you're not good enough for this woman or for any of them, that type of nonsense. They take them and they hype them up, and they act like, because you read the things they say to other men, right? They tell you that you're boring, that you're ugly, uh, that you have no confidence. But then you really look in the mirror when it comes to these chicks. It's like there's a whole bunch of women I'm sure you've seen online and in person that you do not find attractive. And it's not even about like, because it's a general trope that you might not find a woman who's like older, attractive, whatever, they've aged, whatever. But I'm talking about chicks that are your age. You probably have met some that you didn't think were attractive, but guess what? A lot of them still end up getting boyfriends or men that are interested in dating them, which already derails this argument that somebody is so ugly no one will ever think they're attractive. We already discussed how dumb that is. But then you get over to where they talk about you being boring or like trying to analyze how interesting of a person, where it's like, are you kidding me? You really think that every one of these women are these like very interesting action heroes? Like, are you kidding me? Some of these chicks, I'm not even joking, you would fall asleep talking to. They'll sit there in their little monotone voice. Oh yeah, are you over there? Oh, how is it? Oh, cool. Yeah, really interesting. Like they don't know how to banter. They're not telling jokes that are funny. They're just sitting there, just doing what they do, wasting your time and getting overhyped. When in reality, they're the only thing that makes them on the internet anyway, or in American society, considered any better than you or I is because of what they have in between their legs. That's it. And I said, why give so much value to this group of people who, in general, I'm very admitting of this, are no better than men. Like I said, there's no reason why a woman who no one ever heard of, who's not a celebrity, who's not famous, should have 10, 20, 30, 40 guys on the internet trying to talk to her. There's no reason at all. Akatsuki Merchant writes, imagine lacking social skills but having the gall to talk about someone else. Well, that's what I'm getting at. They're like they take just women, like the female gender. We're not even listen, you know what? I said this before. There are some people that are obsessed with celebrities. There are some people that are obsessed with certain like female content creators. At least that's a specific woman that they're like really trying to build up and make seem like she's so great and amazing. But we're talking about taking an entire gender and on the basis of their gender alone. Because remember, most women are not famous, most women are not rich, etc. And trying to just make them seem like this unattainable thing that is of such a higher value than that of your average man, that we're supposed to go through this years long quest just to get what I've said before, the tiniest bit of reciprocation from one of them. That's crazy as hell to me. But yeah, when we mentioned the social skills part, it's like, you really expect me to believe all of these women are so interesting and dynamic to talk to that they're all these like comedians slash uh interesting backstory like get out of my face when you talk to some of them. If I swear to you, if you were not so desperate to get a date in a lot of these instances, you would fall asleep. They're not funny, they're not dynamic. I mean, like, what a joke. And like I said, no one, because we always have to make this distinction. Nobody's talking about all women as being born, or no one. I'm not saying that. Um, but like I said, I don't really appreciate being attacked in all these different ways so that another group can appear to be perfect because they're really not. Dude, I told you the biggest irony to me about all this stuff is like living in a world where you know that like remember they prop up the female gender. If you can't get with a woman, there's something wrong with you. You have seen chicks date serial killers and marry them too. You have seen women date I mean like men that have done all types of awful like and you know what? It's not even a thing where it's like, oh, in this third world country, women don't have the right to pick who they want to marry. You have women in the US that get with men that they either know have done something evil and they don't care, or have been accused and shown convicted in court to have done something evil, and they're just like, hey, whatever. I don't believe this. But I hope Akatsuki Merchant, the one piece of irony you take away from all of this is that at the same time as you are being told you're not good enough to ever date a woman, women are dating serial killers, people that are men that are in jail don't have a single dollar in their pocket. I mean, what is that? That's why I said that reality so often clashes with the stuff people put online. And that's why I truly believe this. If a woman is truly interested in a man, it doesn't matter what he is. And I know that it's the same thing vice versa. How many times have you seen um a man not want to date a woman because she doesn't own anything, or she doesn't have a car, or she doesn't have a job. You never see this stuff get factored in, because usually we're pretty simple. You think the woman's attractive, you enjoy speaking to her, and then that's it. That's the way things should be. Shouldn't have to jump through 900 hoops just to get somebody to like you. And it's so funny when you sit here and you watch people like actually pretend that women have standards, like they in general have these. And I said, really, what it is that you have the ego, you have social media, but as far as like who they're actually willing to date, like actual background, personal stuff about that person, I don't take it seriously, because we've already seen it, man. We've gone down this road before. I told you, don't let anybody on the computer try to convince you of a version of reality that is not the case. Because if you actually look at the types of men that they bother with, like whether it's in the current era, throughout history, it's a joke. Like don't and I it's so funny. I was told that I was part of like this group of self-loathing guys, and you're gonna go and do this to this one. It's like, I always, first of all, I always condone I don't condone violence. I don't support it. But also, I've never been able to understand what is extreme or toxic about telling other men, hey, you know, don't beat yourself up over a bunch of chicks that are not really that great to begin with. Hell, even the ones that are actually decent, I still wouldn't beat myself up over. Like if I asked out some celebrity woman and heard nothing back or got rejected, I wouldn't be mad. I would actually agree with the assessment that that woman is out of my league. But the problem is, we're getting to a point where regular women who are not famous, who have not been in the movie, who have not been in the TV show, who do not have thousands or millions of followers, think they are famous, think they are better than you, and that there's something wrong with that. You know, you don't have to beat yourself up over somebody else's stupidity. I notice we haven't seen any of these guys try to defend the point where I made about how, because I said before, while I try to be compromising, there are certain things that have to be done correctly, like have to be done in a way for it to actually work. And what I was getting at when I did my "We Can't Go Back" video was how any compromise on having children that's not being married is going to be garbage. Like, you're going to have this kid with this woman you're not married to, and then if you don't stay with her, which happens a lot, she's going to either try to get custody of the kid over you, and their courts favor the mother, put you on child support for supposedly not doing your thing or as some revenge tactic, and again, courts favor the mother. So there's no reason for me to. I mean, truthfully speaking, I wouldn't even engage in just any type of bedsheet activity, one of these bastards, unless I had like, some kind of protection or was married. Like that's how dangerous it is to even get involved with one of them in that manner that you're not married to. Because there's so many ways that if they have that kid, it can destroy your life. And how ironic is that we're gonna take a new life and use it to destroy an older one or destroy one that already existed. But I asked in the video, I said, "What about that sounds appealing to me?" You know, because I had this one idiot who came on here, and they claim to be a woman, but I think it's a guy because we've had men pose as chicks before on here where they make an account and they put some woman's name to like get my attention. But you had this guy, and he was like, "Your views are so old fashioned." I said, "Well, what exactly is old fashioned about wanting to meet somebody who you feel you enjoy the company of, you have a connection with, etc., and then date that woman for weeks, months, whatever. And then if you really enjoy being with this person, why not get married? I mean, like I don't understand what is what of my views is befitting of some decrepit time period. Like, I'm sorry that I don't want to date a gold digger or one of these Johnny come latelys that comes around and tries to get fame off you after you've achieved something that they know they can't get by themselves. I'm sorry. Yeah, and some of them love destroying people's lives. But see, that's why I told you that when you have those guys that are offended that you don't want to talk to women anymore, because like I said, it has nothing to do with them, no effect on them whatsoever. And they come on here and they give all of this unsolicited advice where they're telling you to go and exercise and become wealthy and all this other crap so that you can appeal to a woman, right? Because that's the only reason they're writing this stuff to you. I swear to you, they are not actually interested in seeing you succeed. Because if they were, they wouldn't be so like I said, this stuff would get brought up in a different context. Like if I said, "Hey, Akatsuki merchant, you and me are going to have this new business, and I'm going to give you 5% of the first week's profits, and then 50% of the weeks after that. What you choose to do with what I give you is your business." You see how it has nothing to do with women? Like what you choose to do with what you make, I have no comment on. You do with what you want. It's nothing that concerns me. It's nothing that bothers me. But you don't tell somebody to get rich, have muscles, which by the way, it's a fact. Most rich people are older, so they don't have muscles. So that's another one of these like Superman-esque qualities that most guys are just not going to have because that's ridiculous. But you don't tell someone to do all of this extraneous crap for a group of people who literally have to do nothing to appeal to him and then say you care about that person because you are directly playing into an entirely unfair system where no matter what he does, you're just going to blame him anyway if it doesn't work out. Like I said, none of these guys, out of all of them, have ever had a character arc where they go, "Man, this guy exercised, and I said that he needed to become funnier, and he's got this woman laughing at his jokes, and she still said no. There's something wrong with these." No, they're going to say, "Well, you probably fumbled on this, or you probably made a mistake here," because it's always the man's fault, and they're surprised you don't want to play into that garbage anymore. But yeah, don't ever convince yourself that people on a computer care about you. Because like I said, what if 99% of the people online that you've encountered done for you besides type something in the comment section or write some comment somewhere? Like what have any of them ever done? The answer is nothing. Like I said, it's something that people just have to are gonna have to, I guess. And I've said before, I still want to pursue relationships. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're wrong for wanting something normal, even though that's exactly what people tell me. Um, but at the same time, I'm not going to be surprised when it doesn't work out. When you find your time wasted and your efforts, futile. Just not really something I want to, act surprised on. Because, like I said, chicks play a very like we were talking about the tragedy of romance, and one of the tragedies of it is that when you're not dealing with these almost treacherous women, like the ones that, and you know which ones I'm talking about, the ones that have these like master plans of how they're going to take your money or get something out of you before they, pump and dump you. Um, you have like we gave some examples before. You've had chicks where they get with some guy and they live together, and then because I said before, apartments, in my state cost way too damn much for one person. Um, a lot of these couples will actually get together, and because they're organized, combine their resources, and suddenly they're making 4,000 plus a month on a 1,000 rent. So that means every single month their rent isn't even cutting into half of their profits. And I said, like, why can't you find women like that anymore? Why can't you find ones that actually do something to assist you? Like, we're not even talking about, "Oh, I'm mad this person didn't buy me a video game," or whatever, but, like, just basic stuff, like basic utilities and things that are useful for you. You don't see that from most of them, unfortunately. Usually it's the guy paying for all the woman stuff or doing something for her, and I don't see how that's fair. And that's why I said you can't have, like, again, relationships according to people online, and a lot of these, like, feminists are supposed to be these, like, equal partnerships. But I don't see how you can have an equal partnership that's based around I has to talk to 200 women to get one to be go on a date with him, and the woman just has to sit there and look pretty and have 50 guys trying to holler at. Like, I don't see how you can create something fair off of such an unfair premise. It's kind of like if I said, let's make me and this woman are going to adopt some. Oh my god. Well, the internet I knew would go back to the way it is. Yeah, I hate when the internet does that. But just to give you an example, it would be like if I said me and some woman are going to adopt some kid, and then you find out the kid was like from some bad environment, and like it's something that I guess in theory could be done, but with the foundation the kid has, it's harder than if it had just been raised in some good setting. I know it wasn't the best example, but I tried to give one. This happens when I speak off the cuff. No, anytime I see the connection is unstable, I just start rolling my eyes because I already know what's coming. I don't know. I really don't want to have to go over there to stream. Like just go to that place just to stream. I really would prefer to just be here. But if the connection keeps acting up, and I really don't want to have to use my phone to do it. That's why I think it's so funny. Like, how is it that computers the connection acts up on, but then phones it's like fine? Like that's crazy to me because the computer's supposed to be like the stronger devices, but I'm not seeing too much strength because yesterday it was going in and out, and I was getting really irritated. I was trying to watch something and it was buffering over and over. That's why I said you just get tired of a lot of this stuff because the internet's quality just fluctuates. Like sometimes it works really good, but like I was watching something without interruption for about 3 or 4 hours yesterday. Um, then it starts acting really buggy, and it's frustrating because when you do a stream and you're doing it, obviously live, you don't really, when it says connections unstable, you don't know how much of the stream has been messed up by the connection acting up. So that means when somebody plays it back, there's going to be a part where I just cut out abruptly, and that's really annoying. So I'm not looking forward to streaming on Saturday now that I know that it's going to do the same connections unstable thing and probably mess up the stream again. Usually I like to go for 2 hours, but damn, I mean, if we can't even guarantee the signal will work for that long. The connection is unstable. All right, well, I'm probably going to end it in a few minutes because I'm not about to keep having this thing act up on me. Yeah, and I really don't want to have to go over there to do that, but I guess I might as well. Um, the more I think, I'm like, wow, that's how much streams matter to me that I'll actually like go to another house just to not have the connection act like uh, very awful. I think what might happen is I don't know where the router is, so maybe that's one of the reasons it's doing that. I don't know. It's just I'm tired of the internet being weird. Like I said, I'll never get. People always talk about we live in this advanced age, all these computers and technology, and you can show somebody something from across the world in like a second. But when I see the internet acting like that, and then I know when I play the video back, it's gonna have these pieces where I'm cutting in and out. I'm not really convinced. Man, that connection is just so weird. Like it worked really good for over 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden, two interruptions or two shows of being unstable, pretty much back to back. And yeah, I'm always dreading like playing the thing back and then seeing where it cuts out. Yeah, my connection's been acting up. I wasn't able to play Fortnite because of it. I turned on Xuniverse 2 and I was over here when I played it, so maybe that's the reason. And I played it like the non lobby mode, right? I played maybe 2 or 3 parts of the story mode and then all of a sudden it started acting up. And I was like, "What in the world is going on?" Then it said like your connection has been lost. I'm like, "Wait a second, this is not online. Why is it lost?" Maybe do you understand why that's bizarre to me? Because if I'm not playing online there is no online mode that I'm using, then the connection should not even be a factor. Like it's not on the internet, as far as I can tell. Because if you remember, a lot of the people that you see in Canton City, they have names of people that are online, but they're played by computers, which again is like furthering my point that you're not connected to the internet when you play in your single player lobby because it's just you and the NPCs. Mm. By the way, Akatsuki Merchant, I don't know if you ever played Shinobi Striker, but I'm hearing some interesting things about that game. Part of me kind of wants to get it, but I haven't really seen other people play it enough for me to fully get interested in it. Because I know it's been coming out with a lot of DLC, for example. So that's one game I'm curious about playing. Because when I first saw, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of like Xenoverse. You get to make your own character and do your matches or whatever." But then I started to kind of look at some of the other things they're talking about. You make a team, and there's not really a. So I just need to see somebody kind of explain it and go through the gameplay a little bit more for me to fully become interested in it. Yeah, I saw The Matrix about a year ago. I still haven't seen the second and third one though. I want to because I mean I'll watch anything with Lawrence Fishburne. He was the main reason I was upset with the fourth one, and I know I'm not going to even bother watching. It's like, how do you? Why would you bring back two of the three of the main trio from the original trilogy, but and then you bring back more like the character, but then not the actor for one? Like, what is that? What do you mean, pretty late? I mean, I didn't see The Godfather until 50 years after it came out. I mean, how could I? I wasn't born. I didn't exist. So I'm automatically late on it. There's There's nothing else to say about it. Hell, by that logic, all the people that saw The Last Airbender for the first time when it came on Netflix were late. I hope you realize that there are people who either are not born when this stuff comes out, or who were children when it came out that didn't see it because they didn't have access to it. Like, I know that when I was a kid, I didn't have streaming services. So the only way I could have seen this stuff is if I had bought the DVD or seen it in theaters. I swear people online say some of the weirdest stuff. Pretty late. What does that even mean? I mean, I know one person who just saw Avatar, the first one, like a week ago. I didn't tell them that they were pretty late on Avatar because when they were born, Avatar came out before they existed. Like, I don't, it's just, it's so weird. It's like, do you not understand the concept of people who were not around when something originally came out, then going to see it? Hell, by that logic, I was late to X-Men because I didn't read Chris Claremont's run until I was an adult. But hell, when Chris Claremont's run was a new thing, I didn't exist. It was from 75 to 91. So where so anyone that reads or watches something after it comes out is late to it. There's a time limit on when you can see something. Oh my god. And people online, they come up with a lot of bizarre things. I guess seeing the world develop the way it has might have more impact if you thought of things through the perspective of the Matrix. Okay, but you're telling me that I'm late to seeing a movie that well, the first one, what year did the first one come out? I think I was a year old. Let me see. Yeah. So it's like what you're telling me I'm late to seeing a film that was theatrically released when I was a baby, and a pair of sequels that when they came out I don't even think in first grade. So we're and you know because I think you're old enough to remember that when the internet started, you didn't have a bunch of streaming services. A lot of those free movie sites weren't even really a thing. So the only way I could have seen this film, and I didn't have a job when I was 5 or 6, was for some other adult to buy the DVD and a DVD player and then stick it in there and then have me watch it, which there was no priority to do because it was a movie that really was not, especially the sequels, really was not like this big, huge deal that, oh my God, you have to see this. I can see a fundamental disconnect here. Oh, there absolutely is. Now, Megumi, you understand that if something is released before a person is either born or before they have the, I'd say, like mental capacity to have even been watching it, they're probably not going to have seen it or engaged with it when it was released. Like, I didn't see Dragon Ball when it came out. Dragon Ball came out when my parents were in preschool. Does that mean I'm late to Dragon Ball? I didn't catch it when it was originally being shown on Fuji TV. Hell, by the time Naruto came in America, I saw Naruto when it did come out in the US, like it was Cartoon Network hyped it up. But by that time, Naruto had already been released and in Japan for 2 years. So was I late to Naruto? Because they chose to dub it in English 2 years after it came out in Japanese. Dude, I don't understand this at all. There's a time limit on when to see something. It's on TV pretty often. Not that I don't think it makes you illegitimate. Well, hell, I mean, look, you know damn well that TV is dying out, that there are a lot of people that don't just sit around watching whatever comes on television anymore because you have all these streaming services and they've been around for a while. Um, so, but my point still stands. The internet was nowhere near as advanced as it is now. And it certainly was not as easy to see a movie. Just like dude, I was on YouTube from damn near when it started, even before I had a channel. I remember the 5 stars, the damn 10-minute time limits. When people would upload a movie, they'd stick it up in like 10, 15 parts. There were no free movies on YouTube back then. Hell, YouTube didn't even exist when the Matrix films came out, but that's another story. Yeah, exactly. Yet another thing that pretty much out of your control. When stuff is released, you aren't exactly in control whether you'll be around old enough to watch the stuff when it comes out. It's the same thing with any other form of entertainment. Like, um, I was just to give an example, up until about a year ago or 2 years ago, my brother had never seen any of the Star Wars films. And it makes sense. I mean, he wasn't around, and neither was I. Damn, I think about it. My Wow, I'm just thinking about like how young my parents were, but like the original trilogy came out from the late 70s, early 80s. We didn't exist. The prequels came out from 99, I think it was 99 to 2005. I was around, but he was not in any capacity, at least for, most of it. So the point I'm making is you could say, oh, but they're on TV very often. It's like, yeah, but if he never saw any of these, he's not just going to randomly one day be like, "Oh, there's this Star Wars thing that people are talking about. Let me see what the big deal is." So I sat there and watched them with him, and then he liked them, at least the first 6 anyway. But you get the point that like I just think to say someone is late on liking something or seeing something that was made before they even existed is pretty crazy. Hell, a lot of times stuff can come out when you were around and you just weren't old enough to have seen. Like I didn't see Watchmen when I was a kid. That came out when I was like 11. Like was it like 2009? But that was a rated R movie. Like I didn't just sit around watching, uh, you know, films that were for NC-17 or whatever when I was, in like preschool. Like I mean, the point I'm making is it's I don't know. I just think that's such a bizarre take on something. Like but who cares whether you were late to seeing it according to people who think this way? Oh yeah. I mean, personally, if I was a fan of something and somebody hadn't seen it until a year ago, 2 years ago, and they liked it, right? I would just be happy that they saw it. I'd be like, oh, cool, another person that likes something I like. Good. I mean, heck, by that logic, I was late to Universe 2. I didn't get that game until 5 years after it came out. And apparently I really wasn't late because they're still pumping out DLC for that damn thing. They got some new DLC that just came out a few weeks ago. It wasn't supposed to be this meaningful. I just think the Matrix reflects on social cultures in interesting ways. Well, it's generally agreed upon that the first film is the most important one, which I saw. So, but even if you were to say reflects on in culture in an interesting way, I mean, sure, but it's not like this was some kind of required thing I had to watch. I never had a class that played that movie. And if people were children when something was released, a film that I think you would agree has some semi-adult themes or things. It's not like a superhero movie where they're just, where it would just be marketed to children. They might have not seen it until they became an adult. But yeah, it wasn't supposed to be this meaningful. I just mentioned in passing I hadn't seen it until like a year or two ago, and I wanted to see the sequels, or at least the first two sequels. In my case, I was fortunate enough, my older siblings were old enough to purchase the movie on DVD, and we all watched it together. I wasn't old enough at all to get it or seen it in the pictures. Right, that's what I'm saying, that sometimes there's a thing that comes out when you're a kid that you didn't see because you weren't old enough to see it, or you didn't have, like, for my in my example, I am my oldest sibling. I didn't have any older brother or sister that could just go out and buy me a movie and we would watch it. I had, my parents, my grandparents. Um, I mean, and most of them weren't going to the theater any damn way. So it's like, unless it was something I really wanted to see that I saw a commercial for, or that they were also into, you probably weren't going to see it. But you do understand that, like, you could make the argument that you saw the movie when you were a kid, but because of how long, like, I don't know if you saw it over and over again, but you admit you didn't understand the things that were in there when you saw it initially. So you would probably agree with the sentiment that somebody can not control, even if they're born at the time something is released, their age and the impact that that has on whether they get the concepts and things that are discussed there. Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely agree. I feel this way about many other stuff I saw when I was a kid too. Yeah, because there's some adult themes and things that you don't pick up on when you're a child because you haven't experienced it. Um, and that's why I said it just seems so weird to me, like, hello, person that was a literal kid when this movie came out. You are late to seeing it. But yeah, there was pretty much no scenario. I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that came out in like the 2000s that I just didn't see because there was really no one around me that was like, "Oh, you have to see this." Yeah. Just like Avatar, right? The best-selling movie ever. I've never seen it. I don't know anyone that in real life that talks about it, that says, "Oh yeah, we got to go check out those blue bastards." So, like, unless I take the initiative myself to see it, which is easier to do now than it was back in 2003 when, Matrix 2 and 3 came out, or I guess when the last one came out of the trilogy, um, then I probably would never see it because I don't have someone tugging me to go check out this movie. Of course, I can take the initiative as someone who has the access to sites that have it, but again, my point still stands that it's much easier to do that now than it was back then. Dude, I remember they used to have those channels, they play a movie. And I remember it was on, I think it was Direct TV, and they would start the movie and you'd see like the first 2, 3 minutes of it, and it would just turn off. And I remember you'd have to like buy the movie with your card and like call in the network, or the, I guess, the channel, and pay to see the movie. Silence me because I make sense. How are you silenced if you're still able to write stuff? So now you're not making any sense. Now, Megumi, explain to me how a person who is not blocked, is not banned, is not deleted, is not yanked, is silenced as they're typing what they think about what I'm saying. Dude, I swear the absurdity just gets to like new levels every stream. People who aren't banned are blocked or hidden, or they're being silenced. My free speech is being taken away as I'm able to speak my mind about what my opinion is on what you're saying. They just like, if they get any pushback on what they're saying, they're like, I am being persecuted. He's going after me. It's like me saying it's late to see The Pianist. Yeah, I didn't see The Pianist came out when I was a kid. I've never seen it. Now I did see Super Size Me because they played that in my gym class when I was in ninth grade. Because these things reflect on real life. I really don't care this much. Well, I mean, when you start talking like that, why don't you just leave? I mean, if you don't care, that's fine. But if I do, I'm probably still going to speak about it. So if you are bothered by it, you can just go. How old was I when The Pianist came out? Let me see. Was that movie that Polanski did? I think it was. So if I go and see The Pianist on my computer right now, I can expect for you to say, "Oh, you're late to seeing this movie that came out when you were 4." But like I said, there's a whole bunch of culturally significant films that people have never seen, and there's a lot of factors into it. You can't just say that because you saw something, somebody else is late to seeing it. Because personally, I don't. I think good entertainment, and it's just my opinion. Maybe Megumi disagrees. I don't know, but I feel like good entertainment has no age limit or has no time limit on when you can see it. Like, again, I didn't read Chris Claremont's X-Men run until over 30 years after it had ended because I didn't exist when it came out or ended, or rather, 75, 91. But I'd say I like it just as much as anybody else does. I don't feel like my opinion on whether it's good or not has been discredited by the fact that I read it decades after it finished. If anything, it's been further his run was further vindicated by the fact that multiple X-Men movies and cartoons have taken inspiration from his stories, which you wouldn't have known back when that run was initially being released. Who said you were crazy? Well, you certainly cared enough to keep responding about to the responding about to this stuff. Those stories reflect real life meaningful ways. If you learn about the Holocaust or the fast food industry in your 20s, it might be a detriment to your understanding of the world. You literally said I was being crazy. Well, I think it's crazy to tell someone that they're late to something that came out when they were a kid that's not meant for children. But if you want to get into real life historical events, I mean, well, but you're making it meaningful by mentioning the Holocaust and the fast food industry. Like, we were talking about whether you had seen some movie when it came out or how long you had seen it after it came out. Uh, and then it segues into a real life historical tragedy. And I don't even know what's meaningful about the fast food industry. Like, what that they put like growth hormones in the in the cows or something. But yeah, there are plenty of people who are older or are adults that don't know different historical who they are, because sometimes I might mention them to them. I'm not going to say late to learning about this person that lived 100 years ago. I mean, they didn't exist when it came out in school. They probably didn't teach it because in school they give a lot of these abridged summaries of stuff that I think is important. So I'm not going to sit and be like, you should have learned this when you were 5. I mean, it's I just don't really agree with that understanding because sometimes our perception of something and the advantages that we've had to even know about the things that we do are not those of other people. I don't think there should be some time limit on whether you're supposed to see stuff. That's what I'm saying. But I mean, I guess if I'm being generous, I'd put The Matrix in like this category of like late 90s to early 2000s stuff that, was like very culturally significant, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, whatever. But it's like there are people that haven't seen that stuff. Some children that weren't born when it came out, some adults who just are not interested in those types of genres, which is a thing. So, it's there's a lot of reasons that can go into somebody not seeing something that you might, think is very important, but they still haven't seen it anyway. Like I wouldn't just go online and type in, watch Super Size Me. If I hadn't seen it in class, I probably would have never seen it. Yeah, it's really crazy. Yeah, that'd be funny if somebody put up a YouTube video and then like 10 years later a person comments on like, "You're late to this video." Okay, Lord of the Rings has nothing to do with reality. Do you think the movie about the guys with stuff coming out the back of their head and blue and red pills do? And dude, I don't like what is reality based about a movie where a guy is in some simulation fighting computers? Look, you can say you really like the movie, you love it, you think it's meaningful, whatever. But the fact is there are sci-fi elements in it, and there are a lot of people, myself included, who are not around individuals or um institutions that considered it significant enough to show to a class of children. You seem to be interested in the government. Okay. I can assure you I was not interested in the government when I was 5, which is when that last Matrix came out before the fourth one. Hold on, didn't you say you didn't care enough about Megumi, you know how they do. Remember that one guy that was like, I am leaving. You can enjoy him and his self-loathing, and then you see him for like another 7 months, right? Stuff about say one thing, do the other. This is an internet pastime. I tell you, I don't even know what this is anymore. At least the internet's not. Oh, I don't want to jinx it. I might say something. I'm explaining myself pretty well. I wasn't attacking you. Saying it's late to see a movie isn't an attack. Well, I'm asking you to define what the hell being late to see a movie even is. If something came out before you were born, or if it was meant for adults when you were a child at the time of its release, when were you supposed to have seen it? I'm honestly offending you from whatever hate you think I'm spreading. Oh, defending you from whatever hate I think. What I'm not. What hate? Mm. Like I said, there were a whole bunch of people that never saw The Last Airbender when it was released on Netflix, and you never would have told me you guys are late to seeing this. I saw it when it came out. Don't take the late part so seriously. Well, what is that even supposed to mean? If it wasn't something you actually intended to say, you wouldn't have typed it out. It's not like you're speaking off the cuff when you write something. You have to think about it. And I don't know if you do this, but I do it. I look at what I wrote, then you submit it. This does kind of remind me. There was this one time when I was in like I think ninth or 10th grade. There was some rapper I was listening to, and it was one of the like the classic ones from like the 80s, 90s. And someone said one of my classmates was like, "Oh, you're late on this." I was like, "What? How could I have been on time with someone that, first of all, music before I was born. Secondly, you know, on a person that stopped before I even started existing. Like just weird." Oh, great. Here we go with this connection again. That thing does act up a lot. Okay, there we go. Again, Avatar doesn't affect on life, social structure, our history in the same ways the movies I mentioned do. Well, hell, I didn't say that it did. I was listen, a movie is entertainment. Whether you want to say it's historically significant, whatever. I could say Birth of a Nation is historically significant. It's still a movie. And there are some people that didn't see it when they were kids, or we didn't see it when it was released and they were children and didn't understand what was going on in it. Which is why I asked you to explain how could someone have been late to seeing something that was not meant for kids when at the time of its release it was they were a child and thus would not have had it marketed toward them in any way. I think you deeply misunderstand people. So, oh, here comes the psychological analysis. See, I try so hard to just have a discussion. Like, notice how I made no attempt at like threatening or saying, "Hey, if you don't agree with me, you're going to get banned." Whatever. We let you write your stuff, even after you said that you didn't care about this topic, but still kept writing about it. But then you start to get into this like weird throw back in your face territory. So let's read what you wrote. I think you deeply misunderstand people sometimes. It's probably why you had the conflict with your coworker. You don't have to assume the worst in people. I didn't have a conflict with that bimbo. She acted aggressive toward me, saying you should be done, and then I just said, okay, and did what she told me to do, and that was it. There was no conflict. I thought she acted really nasty and rude, and spoke to me like I was playing around or something when I was actually cleaning up an entire room uh, and trying to take my time so they wouldn't complain about it. Well, no, back then I couldn't watch any movie anytime I wanted because one, again, like I said, no, barely any streaming services. We're talking about 2003. I did not have a job, which means I did not have the money to go out and buy all these different movies I was curious about seeing. So no, I that wasn't those were not my circumstances at the time of Matrix release. Megumi asked, "What's that got to do with anything?" You already know the answer. Nothing at all. You didn't jump from 1 years old to the age you are now. Right, and that's why I said when the sequels came out, I was still a child. There were many years in between. Okay, so what is your point? There are multiple methods to see any movie. Back then, there were not. Remember, you're saying I'm late to seeing something, which means that you believe I should have seen it when it came because you're not defining what when is the appropriate period for me to have seen this movie. You are saying that there was some period I should have seen this in that was from the past. Back then, I did not have a job, so I couldn't just go out and buy a bunch of random movies. I know damn well Netflix didn't exist. And as far as like YouTube certainly didn't exist. As far as I can tell, most of these movie streaming sites didn't exist. So really the only way I could have seen it is if I had gone up to one of the adults in my family and say, "Can you buy me this movie that's not for kids called Matrix?" Okay, thank you. Now there are multiple ways to see a movie, but it's like I saw it and then you're talking about me being late to seeing it? The hell? Hey, I'm gonna act out what Megumi wrote. Did you have a job before 1 year ago? Sure. But hell, at that time there were free movie websites, which is how I saw it. Do he act like that was a mic drop? Like he was like, "Did you have a job before 1 year ago?" And he just drops the mic. Like what? Like what point are you trying to make? I don't know why you can't just accept the fact that there's some stuff that you think is important that people did not see when it came out, and some people literally will never see. There are some movies that people are just never going to see based off of circumstances and other factors. Like I don't know what the issue is here. And you said you don't care, but you're writing a lot of stuff about it. It's just silly, and noticing how this person is contradicting themselves is making me lose brain cells. Well, I would say something about that too, but then I would get accused of what did he say? I assume the worst in people, and then he'll bring up some other non related example. But Dawn, mad about what? It's like I came on here and said, "Man, I saw The Matrix and it was awful." I said I saw this movie that came out literally when I was a baby. I was a year old when Matrix came out, like 2 years ago, and he's telling me that I was late to see. And I asked, "Well, what do you mean by late? I was a child when this film came out." And he's like not defining what specific period I was supposed to have seen this movie in. Yeah, but they said he said he didn't care enough to get into anything deep with it. That's what I think is funny. It's like I'm the one who's making it meaningful, but then he's bringing up like all this other stuff and telling me that these other movies and shows have nothing to do with reality. It was like, well, okay, well, what exactly is your point? Apparently, none of the schools I went to thought that Matrix did either, because none of them showed it to me. I just want to believe some people can be reasoned with. Settling conflicts is worth some effort. What conflict? You didn't get banned. I didn't threaten to get rid of you. All I did was ask what is the time period to have seen a movie that was not meant for kids that came out when I was a kid, which I didn't see it when it came out, and I'm being told about Super Size Me and all this. Like what? I'm just saying, like if there was an actual conflict, you would have this wouldn't have even gone on for as long as it did. What's even going on? Well, I would tell Akatsuki Merchant to like go look through the chat, but he might have left. So what happened was that I had mentioned that I saw The Matrix for the first time like 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever, like it was 2021, 22, or 20, whatever. So I mentioned I saw it relatively recently for the first time. And then everyone's favorite person that wants to say they don't care about something, but then still keep writing things about the thing they don't care about, Boba said, you were pretty late to seeing the movie. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, the first Matrix came out when I was a baby, and I wasn't gonna be taken to see it in the theater when I was a year old. So what was the time period where I was where that you would define as not being late that I should have seen this movie? And then he just kind of wouldn't really answer my question and started like saying I was making it meaningful, and uh it's all kind of other stuff. It was dude, there is no way I would think something's important to be like, you just saw this for the first time after it was released 20 years ago. They didn't specify what time he considered it being late to seeing the movie. I mean, there's a lot of movies I saw years after they were released talking about. Like, just because something came out 10 years ago doesn't mean you had the means or even a desire to go see it. Like I said, I know someone that saw Avatar. You should have seen this back when you were 6 and it came out in theaters. Like, what are you saying? And then he make the distinction. Well, these other movies and shows don't have anything to do with reality. It's like, dude, but the point is, it's all entertainment. This stuff is still something that, just like these other films, came out in the theater, and some people, which happens with every movie, some people are just not going to see it. Some people did not see it, and some people didn't see it until it was available for them to watch online, and they could just type its name in and go see it. And some people still haven't seen it. I'm not going to get mad at the person that saw it. I think, what is it? Oh, okay. Internet's acting up again. I gotta wait for this thing to go over. Okay, the internet should be fine now. But there are a lot of people who haven't played some very classic games from the 80s, 90s, and part of the reason for that is because they never owned the console, and then they get a ROM or some other way to play it on. I'm not gonna tell them you're late to playing the first Mario Brothers. You're late to playing Legend of Zelda. I mean, like, if they didn't play the game when it first came out, when they didn't exist, I'm not gonna tell them that they're late to it. Again, if some type of entertainment is good, it doesn't matter if it's a book, a video game, a movie. There should be no time limit. I just recently watched Gunpowder Milkshake, and that came out a year ago. Yeah, I just saw Fight Club. You were late to seeing it. Like, what is that? Like I said, if I was an actual fan of something and someone says, "Hey, I just saw this for the first time. It was pretty good," you're not going to see me telling them, "You've never seen this. You are late to it." Hell, there was one show. I'm not going to say which one it is because I'm not about to have him try to argue me over this. But there was one show. It came out. It came out literally the year I was born. It ended when I was like 5 or 6. I just saw it, like all seasons of it, in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I told someone I'd never seen it before. They said, "Oh my God, it's so good. Did you start with the premiere?" They didn't say, "You are late. I can't believe you are just now starting." No, they were happy that someone was getting into something that they liked. We had some good dialogues about the stuff that we both liked, stuff that they liked, I didn't like, stuff I liked, they didn't like. The point is, that's why what he said stuck out to me, because I don't have many memories of like interactions with people. They're like, you saw or read this thing or listened to this thing for the first time after it came out 20 years earlier. You're late. I don't really see people acting with it. They're usually just happy that someone likes something they like. Also, yeah, I don't think your parents would let you watch a rated R movie such as The Matrix. I forgot it was even rated R. Um, like that's how little aware I was of the stuff. But it's just like with Watchmen. Watchmen came out when I was in like 5th grade, and it had superheroes or characters that were dressed like superheroes. I was like, oh, that kind of looks cool, but it's got some naked blue guy, which is whatever. But then I saw it was rated R, so I didn't see it when it came out. And the only way I could have seen it was to go on some free movie site, which I was a lot less knowledgeable of back then, and watch it there behind my parents' back. Dude, I guess the part that gets me is like, because when you start to notice how we're mentioning that people have become interested in stuff that came out years ago and they've just now seen it for the first time, um, you have like him trying to say, "Oh, well, Matrix has to do with social issues, and these other things have nothing to do with reality." It's like, dude, it's a movie. Like we can talk about the allegories, the significance it has with the red pill, blue pill thing, but at the end of the day, it's a film. It's a film that came out, was in theaters for a couple of months back in '99, several months, whatever. Then was on DVD, and I at the time I just never managed to get my hands on a copy of the DVD, nor did anyone I knew. And it was a good movie, which is why people kept bringing it, or at least it was a memorable one, which is why people kept bringing it up online over and over. So that kind of sounds interesting. I've never seen this. It's got one of my, an actor I really like in it. Let me go check it out. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the Yu-Gi-Oh, that came out when I was a kid. I saw that when I was a kid. To Yu-Gi-Oh, you're late, and it's time to debate. You wouldn't even say debate. You would say it. What year Megumi did? What was it? Ocarina of Time? Ocarina. The one Zelda game. It came out in like 2008 or nine. It's like in 3D. It's on the Wii. I'm trying to remember what its name is. Let me look it up. Let's see here. I think it is Twilight Princess. Maybe that one. Let me see. I'll make sure I got the year corroborate. I remember it came out on the Wii. And if it was that one, then it probably is. Yeah, okay. Twilight Princess. So imagine if I never played I've never played Twilight Princess, but imagine if I got myself a Wii and I'm playing the game, I'm doing some stream where I'm playing it, and you come there and you're like, "You're late to Twilight Princess." I'm like, "Well, I mean, I guess I could have conceivably played it when I was 8, but does that really bother someone else that I'm just now playing for the first time years after it was released?" And if he really wants to get into like culturally like significant stuff, he had the nerve to bring up the Holocaust. I was like, how the hell did we go from talking about some movies, to like an actual real life awful incident like that? That's crazy. I mean, if you want to start talking about like relevant works outside of movies, I could say To Kill a Mockingbird's a really significant, consequential book. There are some people who are not going to read it until next year when they take, when they're in like some kind of English class for like ninth or 10th grade. And you're not going to see me say that they're late to kill a mockingbird. Are you serious? Remember, he said he didn't care enough about it to go deep or into something meaningful with it. Oh, you never invoke the Holocaust unless you're trying to be meaningful about something. You would never mention that. Oh, too many countries. And he had the nerve to bring up the thing with that woman at that work. I was like, that wasn't even a conflict. She acted crazy to me, and I just looked at her like, okay, whatever. He acted like I cursed her. I was like, who are you talking to? None of that happened. She said, you should be done. I said, okay, and got my stuff and left out the room with her. And that was it. There was no conflict. She just acted really nasty toward me. And from then on, I was just kind of like, all right, well, I'll speak when spoken to this person. I assume the worst. It's such a weird thing to say. Also, what's up with the weird or arbitrary time limits on things? That's like someone eating pizza for the first time and telling them they're late to eating pizza. You know what? There are cuisines that are exclusive to other countries, and I don't mind that because I don't like. I'm not going to eat no damn dog, but like imagine if you go to let me think of something. Let's say you go to Australia and you have and they eat scorpions and they rip that whole thing up and you're inside the tail or whatever, and then you chew and you're like, man, this is good. And like you've never had scorpion before, you're late to to eating this. It's like there were none around me, thank God. Dude, imagine if I'm like because my maternal grandparents are from Belize. Imagine if I'm like, so hello, because Megumi, you said you're from the UK. And I'm like, I'm gonna mail you some food, or I'm gonna bring some food with me when I go to see you in the UK, and then I give you some gizzards, some plantain, and you're like, oh, this is pretty tasty. You've never had it before. You're late. Like of course. Oh, what's the other one? The caramel cake, where it's like it's that yellow cake with the caramel on top of it. I've never seen that any like sold even in like any American store. And I'm just like, you enjoy this and you've never had it before. You're late. Oh my god. Like, damn, I didn't know this was a job. Dude, imagine if I took you horseback riding and I'm like, you've never ridden on a horse before. You're late. You're like, well, hell, there's no horses around me to even be riding on to begin with, unless you import those bastards. Yeah, it's just a really weird thing to say. I've never understood that way of thinking those people exhibit. I'm really imagining people being like that with food. You've never had sherbet ice cream before? That's pretty late. Oh my god. There is no way any like individual that likes something would be. I'm telling you, I've talked to people who've watched stuff that I've never seen before, like they grew up with it or they, saw it years before I did, and they don't act this way. So that's why it really stopped, because I was like, what the hell do you mean by late? And then he really thought he had like a mic drop question. He was like, did you have a job before last year? And then I said yes, and he typed like all pure. It's like, dude, even in having a job, you're still who's gonna be like, when I get my first paycheck, I'm gonna get the Matrix on DVD. At this point, people just get on iTunes or something. You know what I mean? Like, whose ambition when they're working, is, oh, I'm gonna go and see this movie. Like, people got bills to pay. They're not sitting over here. Oh my god. He really thought he wrote something just like that just got me. I was like, damn, that was he hit me in a critical area. I'm gonna invoke this thing with this woman that has nothing to do with the topic we're discussing, uh, which is something a lot of people like to do when they're trolling. And I'm gonna also ask him this like really personal question, because I didn't know my employment had to do with whether I saw a movie or not, but whatever. All I was saying was it was a lot harder to see movies 30 years ago or 20 years ago than it is now. And I stand by that position. He thought he wrote something so profound. Dude, I could just picture him with the mic just dropping it after he writes them. I was like, what do you really think you just like embarrassed or exposed me? Like, what is this? I got you. Oh my God. Did you have money at some point in your life. Like, yeah, sure, but I didn't. Seeing some movie that came out years ago wasn't exactly at the forefront of my mind. But like I said, but I mentioned the other stuff because there are plenty of influential films that people have never seen before. Oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff I still want to see. That I actually made a whole list of movies I was interested in seeing. That was the weakest attempt at an own I've ever seen. And dude, it's like, what is this argument about? You like the movie, I like the movie, and instead of just saying, "Oh, cool, I'm glad you like the film," whatever. It's pretty late. But you do understand that like me being supposedly late to this movie, which he never defined the period I was supposed to have seen this thing in, and then also mentioning its significance and basis for reality. You understand that those two have like nothing to do with each other, right? Like they're not in sync. Because I could easily say that there are influential books that are actually about real life, like the autobiography of Malcolm X, for example, and plenty of people have never read it. I'm not going to tell them you're late to reading Malcolm's autobiography. It's like some people just never got around to it for whatever reason. Oh, if anything, I'd be overjoyed to hear somebody read it recently because nobody ever reads anymore. But you understand my point, right? That there's plenty of stuff that's been released in the form of entertainment, because books do count as entertainment. Some people read for fun. That's how Twilight and Harry Potter got started. That I could say is historically significant and deals with real life, and some of them actually do just straight up deal with real life that people have never read. Like there are a bunch of people that have never read Maya Angelou's "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings," which is considered a very significant book. And if they read it for the first time, I'm going to say, hey, did you enjoy it? Did you think it was interesting? It was thought provoking. That it was a tragedy what happened to her. I'm not going to say, well, you only read this for the first time in 2023, and I read it for the first time in 2011 or 12. Now, Megumi, I'm sure I know you're not into politics. I understand that. But there are multiple, like, for example, biographies of different historical figures that people have written that are considered groundbreaking because of how much ground they cover and things that were like never released before, right? You're probably never going to read this stuff because you're not interested in the topics that are discussed. But if you were to read it, for example, you're not going to hear me say, you're late to reading this book that came out 30, 40, 50 years ago. I'm going to say, hey, did you like the book? Did you enjoy the prose? Did you learn something? Because that is what I think the most important thing of a biography is, to like actually learn about the person that's being discussed, or the main topic of it. So it's I don't know. I guess the way my mind works is so much of the stuff I'm really into, a lot of other people are not. And I would be happy if they engaged with it. Of course, that way to be able to have a dialogue and discuss what you liked or didn't like. Exactly. I mean, dude, like I swear to you, one of my favorite things, if I watch something and somebody, is like, and someone else watches it with me, is like actually talking about it, like what worked, what didn't work, the parts that surprised. Like I remember with my brother, every time I watch a movie with him, I always asked him, "What was your favorite part?" Seeing his reaction to stuff, like I'm not sitting there thinking he should have seen this when he was 5. Like, hey, better late than never. Dude, some people actually have gone, like, I'm not even joking. There are movies that came out in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I have relatives who are like old enough to have been adults when that stuff came out. And they've like never seen a bunch of films from that period. And again, it's like I don't get mad at them. There's plenty of reasons for why that could have happened. Actually, it's kind of interesting. A lot of movies from a lot of like early sequels. I think you might know about this too, Megumi. They would start with a opening sequence that either described or showed what happened in the previous movie because they assumed that people did not just turn on a streaming service they didn't have back then and go and watch the other movie the night before. They'd be like, all right, it's been about 2, 3 years. Let's give them a recap. So yeah, it's oh yeah, I love that in movies. That's really cool. No, movies have really changed. And you know what's kind of funny? It feels like the people who don't know what they're talking about or who make arguments that are just like seem to be the ones who get the most offended or feel the most inclined to argue with you. Just give an example. My best friend, um, I think I mentioned this before. He tried to tell me that only Star Wars have opening credits. Now, opening credits are where you see the actors' names as the film is starting up. And I said to him, that is completely incorrect. First of all, Star Wars doesn't have opening credits. It has the opening title sequence that describes what happened in the previous movie. But I said, if you want to go down the list, I can name plenty of movies with opening credits that came out. I mean, we can go as late as the early 2000s because you remember the Raimi trilogy starts with each film, right? With the different actors' names at the beginning, and the web patterns and that memorable iconic sequence. With that. So as I start to name some movies, he goes, "Oh, I haven't really seen that many movies." I'm like, "Well, I have." But you see how he makes a claim, and then as soon as it gets pushed back from someone who's actually seen the stuff that he's claiming to be some person who's knowledgeable of, he backs out by going, "Oh, I don't know that much about." It's like, yeah, so then why would you say this to begin with? For example, I recently rewatched Back to the Future trilogy very recently as well. God, this connection. Dude, I'm just imagining how this stream is going to play out after I finish it. It's going to be like 5 or 6 different skips. Oh, it's going to be worse than Superman 4. But you understand my point that like there exists no limit, no shortage of entertainment. There are hundreds of movies released every single year, and most of which most people do not see. That's a fact. So in between all those hundreds of largely forgettable or not well remembered films, there's going to be a couple of ones that people consider to be significant. Like, look, I'll admit Matrix was one of the more influential, 99 movies right from that year. But there's also going to be some people that grow up who have never heard of it. Either because the stuff they watch doesn't reference it, either because the people they're around don't talk about it. Just like, I swear to you, when Avatar came out, it came and went. I went to like 3 or 4 different schools after that movie was released. Never saw a single person talk about those blue bastards. But it was, it was successful, most highest grossing movie of all time, to my shock. And now there's a second one, and people are talking about it again. But you get the idea that just because something is influential or successful in some either objective or way that you can personally consider it to be important, it doesn't mean everyone around you saw it when you saw it or has even seen it at all. Just like my mother has never seen Star Wars. She knows what it is, but she's never actually sat down and watched any of them. Same thing with Star Trek. Like, she's not into sci-fi. Yeah, all I'm getting at is I really wish I don't know, I feel like there should be a bigger emphasis on being happy that someone likes something you like instead of like getting like caught up in trying to be what's a good way of putting it, trying to like gatekeep the way in which they, so like, just like for example, there are plenty of Dragon Ball fans, and we've been over this before, who have never seen the original series. But if someone who first saw Z like I did goes back and watches the original, and they just saw for the first time this year, last year, year before last. I saw when I was a kid, but regardless, um, I'm not going to get mad at them. I'd be happy. I'd say finally another person that sees the gem that I saw in that original 153 episodes. And it's like he was trying to say, "Oh, these have nothing to do with reality." Well, the point I'm making is these are all things that have been out for several, or excuse me, multiple decades. Just like Matrix has now been out for over 20 years, and there are some people who have never seen it. They're just now seeing it for the first time. There's whole literally on YouTube. There are reaction channels where they're like watching this movie for the first time. You know what I'm talking about, those channels where they record themselves seeing something for the first time, which I don't like reaction channels. I've been over that before, but you get my idea. Like I'm not going to go there and be like, you're just now seeing this. Personally, I'm more annoyed by the fact that they have to like put up their reaction to something on the internet for people. Like I don't know, I just my opinion. Whatever. I'm not going to get mad and be like, this movie came out 40 years ago. You should have seen it by now. Well, hell yeah, that's another good example. God, I just people are just so weird. Like it's not enough for them to gatekeep what stuff you can and can't watch. It's now they're like, you must see this by this year. Personally, I'm always happy to revisit something or to see something that's like meant for kids for the first time when I'm an adult because there's certain things I pick up on. Like as an adult, if I watch a show that has like a main cast, I'm more inclined to notice when like a main character is not in an episode. Like, hey, this actor wasn't in that episode, or they were in it for like one scene, you know? And that's something I didn't really pick up on when I was a kid. I would just kind of just watch it and just, like your mind's more developed in certain ways. I feel like you pay more attention to stuff. Just like Ghostbusters is a movie that gets marketed towards kids, but it's got a lot of explicit things in it, like references, like gatekeeper and keymaster are literally, you know, I think Magumi, you probably have an idea what that actually means. You have the keymaster and the gatekeeper. I think you know what was being referenced there. And the keymaster is a guy, and the gatekeeper is a woman. But if I had seen that movie when I was a child, which I saw that as an adult, that's a reference I wouldn't have picked up on, or at least that is a joke I wouldn't have understood. It's a joke a lot of kids didn't understand, which is why the movie gets marketed toward children to this day. But it still is a, lewd joke that it's clever, right? Because it's like deities, the man, the woman, whatever. But it's still something that you might not have understood back, when you were a child. Man, I think it's so sad. I'll try to stream on Saturday, but I'm not going to make any promises because like there's a lot of like glitches over here, and I think maybe what I hate is having to keep restarting like when the connection starts being unstable and you have to try again. Um, and that's what I'm worried about happening, and I really don't want to see that occur. I find that to be natural when you go back and revisit stuff. You pick up on things or have a better understanding of things when you're older compared to when you saw it as a kid. Yeah, like just to give you an example, I mentioned Man of Steel a lot, but when that movie came out, I was 15. I thought Zod was like cool, but that was it, right? And then I saw it again, like 8, 9 years later, and I was just thinking to myself, it's like, well, Zod is kind of like an allegory for the American soldier, because in the U.S. Army, right, they tell you to protect your country, do whatever you can to preserve it, whatever. Well, all these different conflicts that we have, and with Zod in that movie, he wants to turn Earth into something that's going to be uninhabitable for humans, but he doesn't do it because he spites humans, but because he believes it's the only way to save his people, which is patriotic, even if it's, again, it's antagonistic to what our protagonist wants. And everything he does, no matter how screwed up it is still rooted in the decent cause of wanting to protect your people and preserve them. Which is why I said he's like, I never understood the complexities of that particular villain in that movie until like just seeing it again, just like thinking about what he was saying in the lines. It's like, this is extremely like well thought out, and like Michael Shannon's performance is so good in that film. I really but it's something I didn't pick up on, when I saw it the first time years ago. The idea that you'll sacrifice whoever else or whatever else you have that is there to get to keep the people that you actually were created to protect alive and well. Yeah, I went back and watched the Cartoon Network's version of Teen Titans, and I noticed how truly evil Slade is. Slade was. That's another show I want to rewatch, but I still, you remember my goofy best friend, if something's good, you don't watch it again, you remember it. And I said to him, and he laughed, so you play a fighting game, you play one match, and then you just never play it again? But that's another show where there's some complexities to it as well. The whole thing of like, are you better off by yourself or with your team? And I really want to, because I know the fifth season is the one that people are the least kind to, but that's something else I want to rewatch. Hell, even with Young Justice, I said I maintain this, that that show has turned into an overcrowded toy box mess. But the first season, when it had its seven, this Martian girl who's got this secret that like this insecurity about her appearance, and she makes herself look more human-like, and it's like a, enough of a thing, the characters, but we really are truly focused on this group, and all of them by the end of it are fully developed and likable, and you've seen the complexities of each one of them, and that's why I said I really hate that show turned into what it did after the first season, because I think the first season is one of the best seasons of any cartoon, period. That's how highly I think of it. The rest of the show, you can throw out. Wait, what? No way. I definitely watch it again if I find it very enjoyable. Yeah, like as a kid, I knew. Oh, Megumi's reacting to what? Yeah. So I was talking to my best friend. I said, because he claims that the top three Marvel movies. So when he says Marvel, he's talking about all Marvel stuff. So sorry, Megumi, but your Raimi trilogy didn't make it in. I was just as annoyed as you were. He said the top three Marvel movies are X-Men First Class. Um, what's the other one? I'm trying to think of what Deadpool and TASM 2. And he has never seen any of these, by his own admission, right? Has not seen any of these films since they first came out. And you can go and look it up. All these movies are at least 6 years old or older. So I said, well, it seems to me that if you really like these movies and think they're the best of the best, and TASM 2 is actually the worst of the worst, in my opinion, but whatever, you would rewatch it, right? You would see it again. You would, because that's what I do with stuff I really like. Like, if it's good, Raimi film, some character dies. And he admitted he hasn't seen any of those since he was a kid. So he's basically, because he has clearer memories of slightly newer films, he prefers those over the actual better ones that, were made by someone that actually gave a damn. But whatever. I'll never forget. And I actually didn't mention this to him, but there's an article, and I'm just a little bit off topic. I just want to mention this because I think it's funny. So Tom Holland is the one that plays, the newest version of the character, and he said something to the effect of he would be up for exploring the bisexuality of his character, which made me want to vomit because I don't have a problem with gay characters in fiction, but I do have a problem with taking a character who's always been depicted as straight and then, you know, depicting them as not being straight anymore. But anyways, that was weird, right? And then I went on I can't remember what website it was, but I can find the article again if you don't believe me. You can look it up if you don't believe me. Garfield, when he was still playing Spider-Man, said he wanted to explore the same thing, and he wanted to have like he actually mentioned Michael B. Jordan as a possible love interest for his character, and I was like, "What is up with these guys?" And I'm not even like I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything, but it's like I don't understand why it's attractive to these actors that are male and that are by all accounts straight to want to play a straight character as being into men. Like I just thought it was weird, and that's one of the reasons why I like Maguire. He doesn't get caught up in any of that. Like all like behind the scenes, he's just a guy that wanted to do a movie. That's it. There's no I wanted you to see the sides of like just he's just a normal guy. These two and their little agenda stuff. I'm kind of I was like, what the hell? And like I said, no problem with them wanting to play gay characters. No problem with them wanting to whatever. But it's like I don't like taking something and then changing it for a movie in that manner. I really don't. That's just my opinion. I don't have a problem with gay people. We've been over this before. Um, but I think I made my point. It was just weird to me that they were like really adamant about let's take this straight character and make them attracted to men. It's like, no, thank you. I'm glad Marvel. You know what? I'm glad they don't write the damn movie. I'm glad Sony was like, nope. If something's good, you watch it once and you remember it. It's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I thought it was weird too. I always prefer Maguire. He's the true Spider-Man for me, anyways. Watch the me too. And listen, I'm telling you, he is the only one of those. Like, listen, Garfield's a good actor. I've seen him in other stuff. I thought he was decent in the TASM films, whatever. But Maguire's the only one of those three who does not say weird, progressive, or just bizarre stuff. Like you can find articles of both Garfield and Holland talking about wanting their version of Spider-Man to be gay. And I just think it's weird. Like if you like this character so much and you want to be accurate to him, why would you change his sexuality? And remember, it's not the director saying this, and they're like, "Hey, I don't know." Like they ask him about it's the actors are like, "Yeah, let's do it this way." Exactly. Oh, please no. And listen, Maguire is the only one of those three who doesn't like get caught up in that weird stuff. He's the guy that does a job. You ask questions about the movie, he answers the question about the movie, he's out. Yeah, he's the true Spider-Man for me anyway. And you know what? He's the reason why him and the Raimi films are the reason why every version of the character afterward either takes something from the Raimi films, or they try to like be the complete opposite as far as like, damn, they did it too good the first time. Because I don't know if you ever saw Spectacular Spider-Man. That was the cartoon that got canceled after 2 seasons because of the stupid Sony merger. It was a really good show, in my opinion. But they have scenes in that show that are literal replicas of what was in the Raimi films. Like they animated the scene to look exactly like certain iconic moments in the three of those. Um, and if you even go back even further or go further in time, when the TASM films were being made, because we know this now thanks to a Sony leak, there were two ideas they had about Maguire. They had one idea where it was going to be a crossover between TASM and the Raimi films, which I think would have been pretty cool. And after Garfield was fired, they actually considered bringing Maguire back to play a middle-aged Spider-Man, which I would have liked and preferred over what we ended up getting. But yeah, you look at the stuff that we've had since those films, and it's all been like trying to be something else because they know that what came before is still memorable and iconic. Let me tell you something: those early Fantastic Four movies, they will never be remembered as much as those that original trilogy of Spider-Man films. Same thing with X-Men. X-Men's notable for like the first two being decent to good, and then the third one just being going off the rails. Um, but you will seldom find a movie series that was as influential. I'm not talking about like a cinematic universe like the MCU. A movie series that was as influential as the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy in the 2000s. Like, there's very little. Maybe the Dark Knight trilogy, maybe, but that's about it. Dude, you know what's so crazy to me? Like, the reason I brought up who Garfield says because Michael B. Jordan ended up playing Killmonger in Black Panther. So I'm just like imagining Killmonger and the TASM Spider-Man like on a rooftop talking to each other. Oh my god. Oh, that is so nasty. Like, I don't know why they wanted that. You know, I swear to you, you can be a very talented actor or singer and be a complete idiot when it comes to writing stuff. I mean that sincerely. Like, I don't think I would be a good actor. I think I write stuff and try to make it make sense. I go over it, whatever. But you can really see the flaws in these people when they start talking. And I actually liked Fantastic Four, but yeah, the Raimi Show is such a great series and impactful. I remember my siblings were obsessed with the movies as well. Yeah, they were. I think I mentioned before. I used to have. I actually still do have the DVD. I don't have the case anymore. I had the special edition for Spider-Man 2, the where it had all the behind the scenes features and stuff. That was one of the first movies I made sure to get the DVD of because that came out when I was 6. That's how impactful it was for me. No, I like Fantastic Four. The comics, the movies are hit or miss for me. Like, I think the second one is probably better than the first one. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I remember liking it. And I was like, wow, they really got rid of this. I just didn't like that they brought Galactus into that and just had him as a cloud because Galactus, you've seen pictures of him as a really imposing villain that a lot of people were excited to see in a story with the Silver Surfer, and then they just were like, whatever. But I definitely would have preferred that continuing as opposed to starting over and getting Van Forstick. That movie was awful. Oh man. I just think it's funny that one of his top 3 Marvel movies literally killed like 5 other movies. Like TASM 2 killed, let's see, TASM 3, TASM 4, Sinister 6, the Black Cat spinoff. Um, at one point, this is no joke. Sony had 34 different movie proposals and like films in development. They were going to make a whole cinematic universe off of, and like what's so sad to me is that TASM, the first one, I stand by it. It's a decent movie. It's not my favorite. I don't really rewatch it often because it's kind of like it leads into TASM 2, which I think is a misfire. But the first one is a decent film with a pretty bland villain, in my opinion, with Lizard, who has like no memorable lines whatsoever. He's underdeveloped. Spider-Man's costume is like trash, but it's got some decent characters that are likable, that are interesting. Um, it's an okay restart. But when you get to the second one, you've got 3 villains, the subplot with Aunt May, the stuff with the relationship. I mean, if Spider-Man 3 is like watching 3 movies, TASM 2 is like watching 5 or 6 in one. It's just like I really never want to see that film again. It's got too much going on. Um and it's so interesting to me how like I really don't know what people see in that damn thing. Like and there's a reason why it underperformed and it got the mixed reception that it did. I'm just not interested in the TASM movies, honestly. Like I said, I think the first one is good. The second one, you if you want to like if you're so desperate for more Spider-Man stuff, just go read some damn comics or something like that. And dude, that's coming from somebody that read the recent Spider-Man stuff and thought it was terrible. It's like I would rather read those than watch that damn movie. But I'm just saying that TASM as a series was a really interesting concept of like, do you know with the Raimi films, every one of them was like, for the most part, self-contained. You have a villain, they show up, they die. Next villain shows up, they die. And you had like the throw line of the Harry and Norman stuff, right? But with the TASM movies, they wanted to make a whole universe where each villain survives, and then they're going to come back and be in the Sinister Six movie, and they're going to be the like protagonist or the main characters of it, and get more screen time, more development. I thought that would have been really cool. Um, and then like there were even apparently talks for Garfield to retire from playing Spider-Man after like 4, 5, 6 movies. And then he would like somebody, some actor that looked similar to him, they'd do like their own clone saga, would then play Ben Riley or Scarlet Spider, and they would be like the new Spider-Man, like, and it would actually stick because it's films instead of the comics where they can bring back Peter whenever they want. That all sounded really cool to me, but the problem is a lot of these film studios get too ambitious for their own for their own good. Like the Raimi films were all done with the intention of we're making a good movie. TASM 2 was done with the intention of we're going to make this a trailer for like 5 or 6 other movies. And that's why it killed the series. That's why people didn't watch it. That's why it underperformed. It's the lowest grossing live action film in the whole franchise. Um, and really, I don't blame you for not being interested because now every time I watch the first, I'm like, well, this is going to lead in the garbage. So I really don't think you're missing that much. And literally, the only reason that series exists is because Sony was screwing with Raimi to where they had to make another Spider-Man movie, and they didn't think he could put one. He didn't think he could put one that was good out in the time they gave him. So he just said to hell. So that series literally exists just so they could keep the license. So much for the original labor of love, huh? Bit of more they could chew from the sounds of it. Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't know what was wrong with them. They were it was stupid, man. It was really the first one is a competently made movie. The second one is one of the worst superhero films ever released, and I will always stand by that. Because you know what? I may have trashed Batman and Robin when we spoke in that other stream. I don't know if you remember, but you know what? And that movie did kill the original 80s to 90s Batman film series because they were going to do Batman Unchained and all these other different ideas I thought sounded cool and they canceled after that. But the one thing that movie has over TASM 2 is that it is funny. It is entertaining. I'll go back and watch it and laugh. Um, and that should tell you something about like when you have a bad movie that's not even someone doesn't even think it's worth rewatching. It's just like it's like even people don't like Spider-Man 3 say it's funny. It's entertaining. There's never a dull moment. And there really isn't. The only Spider-Man I have seen that isn't Raimi was in No Way Home, and the main reason was because Maguire was in it. Oh yeah, I didn't see any of those in theaters between the first TASM and No Way Home, and I only went and saw No Way Home in theaters because Maguire was in it. So you're not alone. Like for a lot of people that grew up in the early 2000s, Maguire is to Spider-Man and what Robert Downey Jr. is to Chris Hemsworth is Thor. Like, there's that first time they get it really right. And by the way, you know what? I think we mentioned this before. The Raimi films were at one point considered to be included in the MCU, which I wish they would have been because things would have lined up a lot better if that had happened. But instead, we got 2 reboots of, I'm just gonna say, questionable quality, and the rest was history. But I do think they'll do something else with Maguire. If like I have a hard time believing after the amount of money that No Way Home made, they're gonna be like, oh no, never again. No, I give it a few years. Hell, they're talking. I've heard that they want to bring him back in Secret Wars, which I'd be really excited for, even if it's just like another mostly cameo role. But still, like I'd rather see that version for 10 minutes than the other two for 3 hours. So thanks for showing up. The stream was really laggy at various points. I hope that it plays somewhat decently. I'm going to rewatch it after I end it, which will be right now. Thanks, Megumi. Thanks, Kotsky Merchant. And I will try to stream on Saturday. And if the internet doesn't work here, I'll just go to the other place. That's how much I like streaming. I'll drive to a whole other part of town to go and do it. All right, well, see ya.